Disney Animation Company started in 1923, and of course, the most famous creation would come in 1928 with the release of Steamboat Willie, which is now public domain, so I can show this freely without being worried about getting copyrighted. I'm still gonna put a filter over it because animation has been around since the beginning of film, really, in general. There's been a lot of early animations you can watch that are pretty cool to see, actually, but most of them are pretty short. In fact, they would stay short as film proceeded to get longer and longer. Animation was, well, more expensive to do, so it takes longer. And that guy obviously was Walt Disney, who wanted to adapt Snow White because he liked the story. He saw a film in 1960 wanting to make a more bigger animation thing, as after all, Disney has been making bigger and bigger animated shorts at this point and getting more commercial success. But they wanted something that was. But fortunately for us, even though he had to take out a mortgage on his house, the movie ended up being a big success. I think it's one of the most important films, at least in my opinion, because without it, we wouldn't have a single animated movie. Despite its importance in film history, it only got an Oscar a year after it was made. It didn't get nominated for a single one because, according to the Academy, it did not actually feature any humans on screen, so therefore we could not give it an Oscar. So the next year, like, oh, I guess we should give it an honorary Oscar, which they gave a special one, which I think is one of the only ones in existence that the Oscar gave out that was special. As you can see, it's one Oscar guy and seven little guys there. Kind of clever. But yeah, Walt Disney was kind of. Though you gotta find it funny that this movie that everyone said, oh, no one's gonna watch that. Everyone is coming in droves to watch this animated movie about like, little men. And if you couldn't tell from my letterbox profile, I like animated movies quite a bit. I know these are all CGI, but it still counts. The film did have problems during production. The film started in 1934, at least, pre production at least, but they had problems with working out the. For example, there's a prince in this movie who has incredibly limited screen time. In an early version of the script, the prince was actually going to have to escape from a cavern that the witch locked him in because she didn't want him to kiss Snow White. And the main reason why is because, well, humans are hard to animate, especially dudes, I guess. In case you didn't know, rotoscoping is filming live action and then using that as a reference or to animate over, usually adding a little bit something different. Here is actual footage on the left, well, photo of it, of what Snow White's live action footage looks like, and the animated top part of it on the right. The animators usually change it up a little bit. But you think with a process like that, we're basically kind of tracing, but not really. You think that would make animating humans easier, but no. So basically, any human characters look a bit weird in animation. They didn't get the rotoscoping just quite right yet. So actually, a lot of the movie is actually just cartoon animals. Though there is a lot of screen time for the Dwarfs, but they aren't rotoscoped in that one dancing scene. They are cartoony characters, so they're more exaggerated. So I talked enough about a bunch of stuff behind the scenes. Snow White is based off a fairy tale by the 1812 original version by the Brothers Grimm is mostly the same. There's slight differences. For example, the queen tries to kill Snow White 3 different times before finally getting the apple, which actually just causes it to get stuck in her throat rather than her actually die. And then the prince sees the coffin before he even meets her, and then he's like, I like this girl, I'm going to transport her to my castle. And then the dwarf accidentally trips, and the piece of the apple falls out, and they get married. And the witch, or the queen, comes to the wedding, and the dwarves are like, hey, we'll dance in these shoes until you die. They're red hot shoes, in case you're wondering. And yeah, that's mostly the main differences. But it still follows about an evil, vain queen who is jealous of Snow White because she's pure. I bring this up because some people say that Disney isn't the best at adapting some fairy tales or stories. In fact, some people get confused about what even is a fairy tale because they think a Disney movie automatically means a fairy tale. Stuff like Pinocchio or Alice in Wonderland are not fairy tales, they're books, but they're public domains. I mean, not that there's not filler in the movie itself. I mean, there's a scene where they spend a long. Snow White, when feeling wise, the way you feel watching the movie, it really works. It starts off with a classic book opening. I think one of the first you'll ever see that many people parody, including my favorite movie, Shrek. But we get a. I know that's the main idea is we're going from the book into the actual story. But Snow White, oddly enough, for 1937 is the one I think does it the best. You really feel like you actually got transferred into a fairy tale story, and it kind of so the Vain Queen's like, I'm gonna have her killed, and I guess she's her stepmother. They don't really go into that much. Snow White could just be anybody at this point. They don't really go into detail, but it doesn't really matter. We see Snow White, who is just a nice. The story is pretty basic, as I mentioned. It basically follows a fairy tale. The queen acts her magic mirror, which some people say is a villain. Maybe a villain in some other media, but in the movie, he just like some frames would look okay, like this. Sometimes it looks fine, but other times it just looks kind of uncanny. And some kind of look really, I mean, this is not bad, but it looks kind of weird. Mostly the front facing. It looks like she has no nose. Like, what happened to her nose? Where did her nose go? I know the animators were going to get all the detail, but even her hair, which looks normal in this photo, looks a little weird in the actual movie itself. They get better at this, obviously, in later Disney films, but the first one is not bad. I actually kind of like it. It has a unique charm to it, but, it is a little. So, despite wanting a guy and not getting out of poverty, she gets scared as soon as a guy appears on. Snow White also decides to sing our first song called I'm Wishing, which is a really cheesy song, and Snow White's singing voice is kind of Betty Boopish, and sometimes some of the songs are better, but I'm Wishing is really cheesy. It's mostly about birds getting scared by a wishing well, and she's wishing for. But he's like, "Hey girl, I got a song for you. It's called One Song," and he sings it, he belts it out, but it lasts. Oh, I didn't rate the song. I'm gonna rate all the songs at the very end. So the queen's like, I really, really hate Snow White, so I'm gonna have my huntsman kill her and take out her heart. Like, come on, woman, that's kind of brutal. You don't want to see her body. I mean, Disney, don't you? And then we get, wow, these animations gorgeous. This movie looks amazing. The background's wild. So the huntsman, who looks kind of creepy here, he looks like, but he can't do it. And according to Nostalgia Critic, is because she finds her too hot. Anyway, we get a nice transition into her running away from her homeland. She doesn't get killed by the queen into a very scary forest where everything starts. She then finds like a cottage. She sings a song before going to the cottage about how if you, and that goes into the next song, which is "Whistle While You Work," which I guess was a cleaning song people probably sang in the 30s quite a lot after the. I gotta mention this turtle that appears throughout the film. A lot of the animals are reappearing, but for some reason this turtle was an obsession of my fiance when we watched this. So Snow White thinks it's a good idea to basically play Goldie. It's actually at this part where we actually get introduced to the dwarf characters. Yeah, but you've been wondering when they were going to show up. Well, they show up now, and they love to mine. I guess I don't know what they're mining. Remember when Disney tried doing this again with the 17s? Yes, they're called the 17s, and it's just stupid. Anyway, back to the actual. Snow White and the dwarves become fast friends, or the grumpy dwarfs. I don't really need to explain what the dwarves' name, but the dwarves have dirty hands, so they need to wash their hands. And there's even a song that goes along with it. I can definitely see somebody hating this scene. I do not. It's kind of fun, but at the same time, washing your hands isn't that hard, people. It is weird because we rarely see any other human character that's in Snow White. Like, for example, the evil queen comes back, like, oh, I forgot that character existed. It's kind of a, and she transforms to a hideous, ugly hag. I mean, the evil queen, by the way, that's her name. Decides that she wants. Also, for some reason, kind of out of nowhere, Snow White decides that she is going to pray because I guess they want. Oh, and there's another song, and there's another song after that. And yeah, it's basically about character interactions and fun animation. Other than the fact that this sequence, known as the Silly Song sequence, where they do have a fun little dance number, was directly ripped off in a future Disney movie known as No One Tell Anybody That Dwarves kind of come from Germanic mythology, which is kind of Norse mythology. Also, all the dwarves in the movie are horny, like really horny, like dopey here. They all want to have sex with Snow White, I guess.
Moving pretty quick there. Why don't you have a nervous? Somebody who came over here to have sex with a 14-year-old girl.
Issue with a 21-year-old coming over to visit a 14-year-old?
I didn't really know she was 14.
So the evil queen easily manipulates Snow White into eating an apple, because Snow White, she's not the brightest person in the world. She thinks it's apples, and Snow White dies. You also see the queen actually a lot more in this movie when near the end when she becomes a witch because she's a. To make this scene more dramatic, Walt Disney told his animators to add rain, which of course is really hard to do in any form of animation. And they bust their back. I guess instead of using some magic, the evil queen's like, I'm gonna crush these doors with a boulder, but it doesn't go up. You see Thor answer Snow White's prayers as he strikes a lightning bolt down at the witch, and she falls to her death, as the boulder then crushes her, and then vultures eat her corpse. That sounds. Now we get to the scene that made a lot of people in 1937 cry. Apparently, the original theater, everyone was crying. And I will admit, this scene is pretty sad, and my fiance cried. I mean, poor Grumpy, he's even crying. Guess he was saddy. The ending actually works very well in the movie. They basically have the coffin because I guess the Dwarves didn't feel like digging a hole because she was so beautiful. But then that prince from earlier comes back. He's like, well, You see, dwarves, I'm into necrophilia, so I'm gonna kiss this corpse. So yeah, this guy is quite literally kissing a person who is dead. I mean, she wasn't really technically dead in the fairy tale, but here she's posed. So yeah, the queen actually does know there's actually something that can break the spell, but she's like, yeah, fuck it. The dwarves are so stupid they'll bury her alive. I guess she didn't expect it. Also, I gotta point out the fact that the character like wants to be the most uh, fairest in all the land, being the hottest or sexiest in all the land. In order to do this shit, the reason I say do they because some Disney movies don't end there, even some of the older ones because of the sequels. But we won't be mentioning them. Oh yeah, Snow White comes back to life from True Love's first kiss. I usually play the credits, but I think everyone knows she comes back to life. In fact, I said so itself by being the movie. And there you go. The film was obviously a giant success, and with it brought us a lot of other Disney movies. In the openings of Disneyland and then later Disney World, both of them featured a ride known as Snow White's Adventure, later rethemed to Snow White's Scary Adventure, and Disneyland only renamed to Snow White's Enchanted Adventure. Unfortunately, in Disney World, the park that I go to, Snow White's Scary Adventure was replaced by a Disney Princess meet and greet. R.I.P. ride. You will be missed. The ride kind of had a replacement known as the Seven Doors Mine Cart ride in Disney World, where you get this roller coaster ride, which I bet some people like, but I'm not a big roller coaster fan. In 1944, the film was first re-released to theaters in order to gain some profits lost during World War II. It ended up being an art success for Disney, and they kept re-releasing it until around. As of yet, there has been no live-action remake out yet, but there is supposed to be one, and this is the image that to go by. It looks horrifying. It'll probably be bad since pretty much every other one was bad too, but maybe it'll be good. But and so will the Daily Wire version. It's also gonna be bad. It looks like shit already. Fuck the Daily Wire, the conservative fucking jackasses. Outside of theme parks, Snow White franchises doesn't really have anything going for it. At one point, there was going to be a animated short sequel, but that was never made. Though a fun fact, apparently at the premiere of the movie, they got like 7 guys to dress up as the Dwarfs, and the costumes. This is a policy that did not last very long after he died. Well, it was kind of, but then a movie made a little bit too much money, known as Return to Jafar, and now other than books and games mostly relating to Kingdom Hearts, that's mostly it for the Snow White franchise. It's mostly got. This is the ranking part. I have a little ranking here sheet that's going to showcase you guys all the stuff I do. Usually I do go to Letterboxd, like here's the review, but you guys can see that in the channel description below when you go on my reviewing sites. But yeah, all the tiers here. So we got S being a 10, A being a 9, B being an 8, C being a 7, D being a 6, E being a 5, and F being a 4 through 1. Snow White, I gave it the A rank tier because, well, it's an A-tier movie in my mind. I'm using a Google Sheet, so it's easily editable. As you can see, they got Snow White there, and 9. It is pretty good. It holds up pretty well. There are some things that would make I can see why someone would rate it lower. But when you watch it yourself, you really get immersed in this world. And the pacing, or then the watching the hand scene, for the most part, is pretty great. Even though you don't get to see some things you'd usually see in later films, there's a unique charm to Snow White that is kind of hard to describe in a way. It's a very emotionally impactful, despite the fact you don't feel those characters aren't the most in. They don't have the most depth to them, but they're charming and likable. And Snow White is, even though she's not the most interesting character in the whole world, the first Disney princess. Oddly enough, I was doing in DreamWorks. I also ranked the villain, so it makes perfect sense to do it here. The DreamWorks one, of course, was someone's tier list, someone they made, and of course, it had problems with the fact that sometimes they were missing characters. Sometimes I didn't think they were really worth ranking. Here, I get to choose which ones I want to talk about, and there'll be multiple ones for each film, depending on which one I feel is necessary. Snow White, I could have put multiple different characters. There's this crow, there's the vultures, there's the magic mirror, but none of them are really villainous. They're kind of observatory characters. But yeah, the Evil Queen is definitely a villain. So we'll rank her. But because we're gonna put the magic mirror, the guy barely appears and just says you're hot. Actually, he doesn't say that. He says you're not hot. Snow White's hotter, even though she's 14. Like that's kind of weird. Don't you think about it? But whatever. The Evil Queen is oddly enough getting an A tier because she barely appears in the movie. When she does steal the show in both her regular form and her witch form. They're both very overly top evil in the way that Disney does best. And in a way, it works because it just showcases how vain some people can be with just narrowing down something. You get to see a character trying to keep their composure, and then they keep breaking down and showcasing what their true form is, even though that's not how they originally look like. The witch is basically what they are. they are an ugly hag, even though they're not actually that on the outside. The last part of the movie I'm going to talk about is the songs. I can't sing. Anyway, yeah, Disney movies are mostly musicals. They don't become Broadway style musicals though until The Little Mermaid in 1989. So a lot of them are just kind of we'll just put a song here. So a lot of times, early songs here they're not going to advance the story at all. They're kind of filler because that's what movies used to have songs for filler rather than progressing character motivations and storylines, which isn't a bad thing. However, I do prefer the latter over what Snow White is, which is insular songs. Sometimes they pass or nice, but sometimes they aren't. Snow White songs are okay. We have the same tier list before. The best song, in my opinion, for the movie being a B tier, Someday My Prince Will Come, which is an alright song. It's nice, it's a B tier. It's definitely the best use of the Snow White's voice actress, who I think her name's Adriana Costello, something like that. There you go. There's your shout out. I think you're dead now, but R.I.P. Anyway, C tier, we got one song, Whistle While You Work, With a Smile, and a song, and I'm Wishing. They're all kind of cheesy. One song might be ranked higher if the Prince was more of a character, but Whistle While You Work works, I guess. Smile and song's okay, and I'm Wishing is kind of cheesy, but I kind of like it. Then D tier, we got Hi Ho. Hi Ho! Hi Ho! What did a dwarf say to a stripper? Hi Ho! I love my own crappy joke. Anyway, Hi Ho is it's well known, but it's not very interesting, at least in my part. They're mining, and that's about it. E's a silly song. It barely counts as a song. They don't really have much lyrics. They go, oh, yeah. I can't do it. And the last one is, thank you for watching. Now, if you don't mind, you can give me a subscribe on my channel here, a like, a comment, even a dislike. If you don't like me, like I hated that dwarf joke, then put it in the dislikes down below. I'm referring to dwarves, I'm referring to the mythical creatures, the little people with beards, not real life people who also can go by the term dwarf. I don't have no problem with people. Actually, that's a lie. I have a problem with a lot of everybody, but I don't have problems based off mystical things like race, ethnicity, gender, identity, and so on and so forth. And I don't know, I'm describing this day.